Tanky times. Feel free to use it for whatever. In this issue, Iran war, Kamani recommended reads, Russian SMO updates, and the actual existing socialist headlines. First up, from Press TV, we got the Strait of Hormuz closed to all transit. The Iranian authority controlling the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf says the strategic waterway is closed to all transit following recent illegal movements by U.S. military forces in the region. A brief announcement on an X account on Sunday, the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, PGSA, said that the passage through the Strait of Hormuz is currently unavailable amid recent U.S. military activities in the region. Due to recent unlawful movements by the United States military forces in the region, transit through the Strait of Hormuz is currently not possible. Yemen warns Saudi strike on Sana'a airport marks the end of the truce. Smoke billows following the Saudi strike against Sana'a International Airport in Yemen on July 13th. Yemen's foreign minister in Sana'a has condemned Saudi Arabia's attacks on Sana'a International Airport, saying that the strike marks the end of the truce and the beginning of a new phase of war. And then this here is in regards to the response we've just seen from Iran. You failed to learn your lessons. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has announced wreaking destruction on several key U.S. military targets across Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Oman in a 5-phase retaliatory operation against the American aggression, including attacks targeting Iranian coastal areas. The IRGC emphasized that its retaliation, quote, has driven the child-killing U.S. military into desperation, pointing to American troops' targeting of the agricultural water pump in Mashahar County in southern Iran on Sunday as evidence of their anti-popular nature. Phase 1. Jordan's Prince Hassan Air Base engulfed in flames. Phase 2. U.S. Drone Command Center in Bahrain was smashed. Phase 3 and 4. Patriot Systems and Strategic Radar Missile Base destroyed in Kuwait. And Phase 5. U.S. Infrastructure in Bahrain, radar systems in Oman destroyed. Yep. You scheme with the US, you can get hit. All right, this was an interesting piece by Press TV that I saw. I recommend reading this whole article. It's quite lengthy, but it's very nice. Very good. How Ayatollah Khamenei's literary corpus reveals a half century of Islamic intellectual thought by Humaira Hayat. Across the bookshops, lining Tehran's Eklab Square, the works of martyr leader of the Islamic Revolution Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei occupy a special and distinctive place. Slim paperbacks stand alongside multi-volume Quranic commentaries, collections of sermons, lecture transcripts, memoirs, translations, and speeches delivered across several decades. To a casual visitor, they appear to be separate publications produced for different audiences and occasions. Read together, however, they reveal a coherent intellectual project developed over more than half a century. Long before he was elected leader of the Islamic Revolution, Imam Khamenei had established himself as a preacher, lecturer, translator, and student of Islamic thought. Many of the books that now bear his name did not begin as books. Some originated as lectures delivered in the mosques of the holy city of Mashhad during the final years of the Western-backed rule of Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. And then here's a couple of the books here that I wanted to. They go over a bunch of the works and give you detailed information about each of them. But here's the ones that I wanted to include just to give you I guess to make you want to read more about them. So, the general outline of Islamic thought. Among the earliest and most influential works of the martyr leader is the General Outline of Islamic Thought, a volume compiled from the series of Ramadan lectures delivered in the holy city of Mashhad in 1974. Yo, thank you for the giant Mirandi. Look at that. The 250-year-old Human. If the general outline of the Islamic thought establishes the martyred leader's understanding of Islam as a comprehensive worldview, the 250-year-old human applies that framework to history. Imam Hussein's Peace Treaty. The most magnificent heroic flexibility in history. The book opens with the question that has echoed through the centuries of Islamic scholarship. If Imam Hussein AS chose peace, why did Imam Hussein choose resistance in Karbala? Were the two brothers pursuing different paths, or the same objective through different means? Palestine, a century of conflict through Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei's perspective. For Imam Khamenei, the question of Palestine has never been confined to diplomacy or geopolitics. Throughout his writings and speeches, it is presented as a moral issue, one that has transcended the borders of West Asia to become a humanitarian concern shared by people of conscience around the world. There's this commentary on Nahij al-Baghera, bringing Iman al-words to the modern age. Bahrain al-Quran, reading the Quran as a living guide. For Imam Khamenei, the Quran was never simply a sacred text to be admired. It was a guide meant to shape individual characters, social life, and the conduct of society. That conviction runs through the 10-volume Bahrain al-Quran series. Each volume is devoted to a single surah, offering commentary that seeks to connect Quranic teachings with the practical realities confronting individuals and communities. And that's just a little excerpt, as I say, from this larger piece, how Ayatollah Khamenei's literary corpus reveals a half century of Islamic intellectual thought. Go check out my newsletter and read that whole article. It is great. And you'll be wanting to pick up these books for yourself. All right. We had to include an article about everybody's favorite. Everybody's newest favorite Republican, Lindsey Graham. Favorited for now, recently favorited, I should say. Recently became our favorited Republican. So here we go. Look at this. Yeah. Senator Graham visited Zelensky, visited Ukrainian drone factory before his death. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday published a post on X. Of course he did. Oh, deeply saddened by the news of the passing of United States Senator Lindsey Graham. Lindsey was a true defender of freedom and the values that make our world safer. He visited Ukraine 10 times during the years of Russia's full-scale invasion and was here with our people when it was most needed. We remained in constant dialogue, and I will miss our conversations. We met twice in just the past week. Was he doing coke with Zelensky? A staunch advocate for bipartisan and bimercurial support for Ukraine. In his recent weeks, he had been working on important initiatives that could help bring peace closer, including stronger sanctions against Russia. We always will be especially grateful for the recognition of our people and the words of admiration of the courage for Ukraine's defenders. America and the world have lost a determined leader. Our condolences go out to Lindsey's family, loved ones, and everyone who has the privilege of working alongside him. Why does he say it again here? Look, oh, what? Okay. For some reason he like says it again, but slightly differently as well. He really liked Lindsey Graham, okay? Mark Carney also wrote a piece about how much he's gonna miss Lindsey Graham too. just in case you didn't know that. So anyway, that was Zelensky's. Zelensky on Sunday published that post on X I just read you. Lindsey Graham, who died at 71 on Saturday night, just one day after meeting with Zelensky in the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. Yeah, this is from Anti-War, so they're spelling it the Western way right now. Graham was one of the Washington's leading supporters of the proxy war in Ukraine, and according to Zelensky, he had visited the country 10 times since Russia invaded in February 2022. You mean started a special military operation? During his last visit to Kiev, Graham announced that the White House had reached a deal with Congress to move forward with a new bill on Russia sanctions and said he would work on it when he returned home. Graham's support for Ukraine against Russia goes back many years, well before Russia invaded in February 2022. Go figure. At the end of 2016, Graham, his late friend Senator John McCain, and Senator Amy Klobuchar um, from MN, wherever, what is that, Minnesota, visited Ukrainian Marines on the front lines of the Donbass war and urged them to go on the offensive despite the Minsk Accords. The agreement meant to end the conflict. Oh, I thought Russia was the aggressor, though. Weird. Weird that. Weird how they were there in 2016. Graham, his buddy John McCain, and Democratic fucking Representative Amy Klobuchar were there visiting Donbass, urging them to go on the offensive, despite the Minsk Accords. How strange. Weird that, isn't it? I thought Russia was the aggressor. That's very strange. Your fight is our fight, Graham told the soldiers on December 21st, 2016. 2017 will be the year of offensive. All of us will go back to Washington and we will push the case against Russia. Enough of Russian aggression. It is time for them to pay a heavier price. Our fight is not with the Russian people, but with Putin. Our promise to you is to take your cause to Washington, inform the American people of your bravery, and make the case against Putin to the world. And that's the gift they thought they get with the SMO. But with the SMO, what Russia realized is they no longer need the approval of the West because they're already destroying that themselves. So that's kind of, I think, part of their that the need to take out this to take out this fascist regime, or at least to stop it from killing people in Donbass, was greater than whatever reputational harm that the U.S. was going to be able to do to them in the temporary measure. And here's our TAAS pages. What we know about new EU-UK sanctions against Russia. The EU ambassadors failed to agree on the 21st package of sanctions ahead of the meeting of bloc's foreign ministers in Brussels, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said. The United Kingdom expanded its anti-Russian sanctions list by 10 entries and added 14 new names to its cybersecurity-related sanctions list. The European Union imposed restrictive measures on the legal entity behind the Max Messenger, according to EU documents. It also placed Russian technology companies VK, which owns the Vodafone and Obletsnitsky social networks, as well as a number of other domestic digital services on its sanctions list. TAS has compiled the list of the sanctions here. So here you can see them all. Sanctions applied by the UK, sanctions applied by the EU. In response to malicious cyber activities, the EU had imposed sanctions on 9 individuals, Russian intelligence officers, private hackers, and private companies, which Brussels alleges assist Russia in destabilizing the EU, its member states, and foreign partners. Oh no. Oh no. I'm so concerned. So yeah, there's all the sanctions patches is there. Vronkat means connection contact, and Odomsky means classmates. So, thank you, March. Appreciate that. Here's also Kremlin addressing the coalition of the willing illusions. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov addressed the coalition of the willing illusions about the possibility of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia, navigating the Sea of Azov, and media reports alleging that the assassination attempt against US President Donald Trump was planned during a recent NATO summit in the daily briefing on Monday. PAS has compiled the key statements, which we got here. The president's schedule. Russian President Vladimir Putin will take part in the People's Front event titled Everything for Victory later in the day and meet with the organization's leaders. The People's Front works on each and every request that Russian citizens submit for the president's annual question and answer session. This work takes place every day. The Kremlin praised the important role of the People's Front plays in addressing issues related to meeting the needs of special military operations veterans and assisting service members involved in the operation. The People's Front has an enormous role in resolving issues related to meeting the needs of special military operation heroes and providing assistance to those fighting in the operation. On the coalition of the willing, so this the I would like to call on the coalition of warmongers. This group of countries does not want peace, but rather a continuation of the war, says Dmitry. We will certainly monitor it very closely. These countries are taking hostile actions against us, as Kremlin says as it vows to keep a close eye on reports coming from the coalition of the willing. The coalition of the willing is misguided by the greatest illusion that it's possible to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. He said, our military and intelligence agencies can see what is coming and from where. Everyone is aware of that, and there is no need for us to try and prove anyone. We clearly monitor the sources of threats to our border and inland areas, he said, in response to questions about whether they need to prove that Ukraine is using Baltic airspace for its attacks. The Kremlin will not comment on media reports alleging that an assassination attempt against US President Donald Trump was planned during the NATO summit held in Ankara on July 7th to 8th. He said, I would refrain from commenting on this report because I have no information on the matter, and I do not know whether these Israeli sources can be trusted. On navigating in the Sea of Azov, questions were raised and addressed to the Russian Ministry of Transport. As for the questions about the navigation, it's the Transport Ministry's domain, so I recommend you contact them. He also said that Russian culture isn't being met with open arms in the West. Some of our cultural presence is still there abroad, but there is enormous pressure. It is regrettable that attempts to cancel Russian culture continue in the West. With regard to Venice Biennale, the only regrettable that in other countries attempts to cancel our culture still continue. Moscow is grateful to Venice Biennale organizations for opening a Russian pavilion. I would like to express gratitude to those organizers who have maintained cooperation with our representatives, and also congratulate them on being free of the short sightedness that currently dominates Europe. And finally, on the special military operation, Vladimir Putin closely monitors the special military operation. All aspects of the special military operation are certainly in the president's focus. He is also the supreme commander in chief. He receives all the necessary information and makes decisions accordingly. Here we go. That's from Russia. Statements from Dmitry. And then here's your updates essentially. Yeah, the coalition, the willing is mostly just Europe, Canada, Australia, and Japan. Doesn't UK like prattle on about it, or you're including them in Europe, or they're not part of Europe, right? I don't even know anymore. From Russia, with love. Russian troops repel all counterattacks at Konstantinova. Oh, okay. I mean Europe, not the EU. Got it. Last week, units of the Ukrainian armed forces attempted to counterattack near Konstantinovka in the Donetsk People's Republic, DPR. But Russian troops repelled all enemy attacks, military expert Andrei Marichoka reported. On July 3rd, Russian presidential press secretary Dmitry Peskov announced that the Russian armed forces had completely liberated Konstantinovka. Russian President Vladimir Putin also noted that the liberation of Konstantinovka was the first but very important step in the destruction of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Slavyansk Kramatorsk fortified region. TASS. We got the NPP spokesperson slamming Ukrainian attacks on Energodar, which is hitting the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and ZNPP. Ukrainians' recent attacks on Energodar civilian infrastructure, the satellite city of the ZNPP power plant, which has resulted in numerous civilian casualties, are seen as a dangerous escalation. The plant spokesperson Yevgeny Yashina said. On July 10th, CEO of Russia's State Nuclear Corporation, Rosatom Alexei Lechachev, said that with International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi in Russia's Kaliningrad, the meeting focused on the situation in the ZNPP. The next day, Ukrainian troops struck a boiler house and a food store in Energodar. On July 12th, Ukraine attacked the city again, killing 4 civilians and wounding 7 more. Likachev described that day as the bloodiest one in Energodar. On July 13th, Ukrainian troops struck a supermarket in the city. TASS. So purposely striking towards. Wow, I got this. We got this alert again. Mama, welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you, Mama. Everybody go follow Mama Mila Media on all of the platforms, please, and thank you. Oh, god damn it. Okay, well, this is why I should not give the shout outs. Once that is up, someone please shout out Mama. I I failed, Dave. I failed. God damn it. Well, as soon as the cooldown is up, follow Mama. And thank you for the raid. So, we got Russian forces advance towards Druzhkova, despite Ukrainian air counterstrikes. The Ukrainian armed forces have been unsuccessfully trying to leverage air power in an effort to halt the Russian advance near Eleshkrovyo-Druzhkovka, heading towards the city of Druzhkovka in the Donetsk People's Republic. Denis Pushilin, leader of the DPR, shared these details during the Vesti news program. In the neighboring region of Transnoyarsk, Derprovlia region, Russian forces have strengthened their positions following the liberation of Vashliaka. They are now advancing in the areas of Belichkoy and the village of Shevchenko, southeast of Dobril. On July 12th, a battalion commander told TASS that Russian forces maintain control over the skies of Dreskovka, effectively preventing Ukrainian units from resupplying remaining personnel in Konstantinovka, which explains why they failed with that counterattack as well. Those are your military operational updates for Russia. And now we have the headlines from the socialist countries. These are our headlines from the OG, the vanguard, the spearhead of the world proletarian revolution, starting with Laos today. The president leads a tribute to Souphanophang on the 117th birth anniversary. Now, if you're on the green place, you actually will have emotes of Comrade Souphanophang. So if you have those, feel free. President Thongloun Sisaluth led senior party and state leaders in paying tribute to President Souphanophang on Monday, marking the 117th birthday anniversary of his birth. President Souphanophang is remembered as one of the founding leaders of the Lao Revolution, playing a pivotal role alongside the party and the Lao Patriotic Front in the national liberation movement and the establishment of the Lao People's Democratic Republic. His leadership also contributed significantly to the safeguarding of the country's revolutionary achievements and promoting national unity. Widely respected as a patriotic statesman, intellectual, and revolutionary leader, Souphanophang dedicated his life to the serving the nation and improving the well-being of the Lao people. Born July 13, 1909 in Luang Prabang, he was the son of Chow Maha Opalat, Brakong, and Mom Kamam Oan. His lifelong commitment to national independence and development continues to be commemorated throughout Laos. Alright, let me find his emote since nobody posted it. See if I can here. I got a lot of emotes on this site. Hold on now. Where are you? Here he is. There we go. See, we got the emote over here on the green site. Jerry the Mouse. Welcome in. We're just doing some news headlines and then I'm going to read to everybody. We're actually just looking at a Cuban headline right now. Cuba resumes production of cryostatic drugs. In the context of the severe economic limitations and a tightening of the blockade, Cuba takes a decisive step to support care for cancer patients. The AICA Laboratories cryostatic drug plant restarted its production operations after completing an investment process aimed at expanding its capacity. News that reaffirms the Cuban state's commitment to prioritizing the life and health of its people. I do have a beard. That's a astute observation. Thank you. In a context of severe economic limitations and a tightening of the blockade, Cuba takes a decisive step to support care for cancer patients. The AICA Laboratories cryostatic drug plant restarted its production operations after completing an investment process. The plant now, with increased capacity, is responsible for supplying 16 cryostatic drugs to the National Program for the Care of Cancer Patients. Production will resume prioritizing those medications of greatest clinical critical, according to the schedules agreed upon by the Ministry of Public Health. Attending to the restart of the operations of the cryostatic drug plant of Laboratories IACA, Portel Miranda noted that despite economic constraints, Its reopening will contribute to ensuring the availability of medications for cancer treatment. Let's go. Here's one from Vietnam. Socialist headlines: I love my fatherland. Journey reaches Lung Ku Flag Tower. The third stage of the I Love My Fatherland Journey 2026 was launched at Lung Ku National Flag Tower in Lung Ku Commune of Tuan Quang Province on July 13th as part of the activities marking the 70th traditional day of the Vietnam Youth Federation from October 15th, 1957 to 2026. The event was jointly organized by the Central Committee of Vietnam, the Youth Federation, and its Troyang Koyang chapter. Oh, another celebration. I love that, the youth in socialist countries have something to celebrate. Isn't that nice for them? We could have something to celebrate too if we had a revolution. From China, we have a report that reveals the fallacies in the South China Sea Arbitration Award. A roundtable dialogue on the security in the South China Sea was held in South China's Hong Kong Special Administrative Region on Monday. During the dialogue, a report titled, quote, A New Critique of the South China Sea Arbitration Award was released. Once again, revealing the major fallacies in the award regarding legal interpretation and application and the determination of facts and the assessment of evidence. The report aims to enable relevant countries, both within and outside the region, to clearly recognize the true nature and harmful consequences of the award. And this is related to that. This article is much longer than what I'm including here. This just gives you the details of what this award has to do with. I recommend you read both of these articles in full when you get the time. The decade-long farce of South China Sea arbitration. Who's fueling the regional tensions? 10 years after the so-called South China Sea Arbitration Award was issued in 2016, the Philippines, together with certain Western countries, continues to politicize and recycle the deeply flawed decision, seeking to make an issue of the award, which China regards as nothing but a worthless piece of paper. Recently, 14 countries, including the US, Japan, and the Philippines, have issued a so-called joint statement stating that China's expansive maritime claims in the South China Sea have no legal basis, and emphasizing that the 2016 ruling is legally binding, quote unquote. Meanwhile, since mid-June, the major Philippine media outlets have intensified their promotion of the illegal reward. And the Philippines politicians, including its defense secretary, have lashed out at China for refusing to accept or recognize it. Military cooperation between the US and the Philippines has accelerated across the board. In 2023, the Philippines granted the US military access to 4 additional bases, bringing the total to 9. 2024, the US advanced a $500 million military aid package for the Philippines, claiming it would help Manila respond to the Chinese Coast Guard. Do I ever think that the massacre by Israel would ever stop in this century? I mean, yeah, I do, but it will stop, by the resistance. I do think it'll stop. Stay tuned because we're going to be reading about that actually today. At least the next part of that, which is critiquing Slavoj Zizek's take on it, on the whole situation in general. First, we've got one last piece from China here. Chongli, 168, where champions run. On July 10th, over 12,000 runners gathered in Chongli, Hubei province. as Asia's longest ultra marathon, Chongli 168, kicked off. The course links 7 Winter Olympic landmarks, including the ski jumping platform, with 80% of the route traversing natural mountain trails for a total of 170.7 kilometers. CGTN host Julian Weghan and Mexican traveler Juan Carlos Shenjiang Guzman joined the crowd, running alongside athletes from 26 countries and regions, feeling the summer pulse of Chongli on the mountains and in the wilderness. Oh yeah, Chongli. All right, comrades, I've got a big article for you from DPRK. It's our first 2-page single article, and it's actually bigger than this even. Go check out the full thing. You'll want to once you hear this. So, the act Lasu, good to see you. Welcome in. So, this article here, the full title of it, let me just bring it up so you can see the whole thing, is "Let Us Guarantee Victorious Advance of Revolution by Strong and Sound Order and Strict Legal Discipline. Report on Joint Meeting of Party, Government, and Army of the DPRK." That's a big meeting, comrades. A joint meeting of the Army, Party, and people. You can see how big the meeting is. Ahem. Let us guarantee victorious advance of revolution. From DPRK. The Ninth Congress of the WPK put forward it as the foremost requirement of the times to ensure the complete unity of action and establish the strong discipline in the socialist construction as a whole. And the state law of the DPRK is directed the spearhead of the absolute struggle against the acts of exercising privilege, abusing power, and corruption, which destroys the basis of the Korean Revolution and erode the socialist state system. Pursuant to the measure, the second plenary meeting of the Ninth Central Committee of the WPK decided to dismiss him from the party central leadership body and refer him to the law enforcement agencies. That's Pak Hoo Choi. The highest law enforcement organ of the DPRK examined the crimes of the accused who engaged in acquiring ill-gotten wealth by various means, while holding an important position in the political organ of the People's Army, and accomplices who cater to his heinous irregularities and corruption. All the crimes committed by the accused were clearly proved by objective evidence at the trial. The accused, Pak Hoi Chol, committed scandals and illegally acquired wealth by abusing his power of arranging organizational work and appointing cadres, seriously betraying the trust and expectation of the party central committee and the people, and challenging the party's line of strengthening discipline. He exerted a very harmful influence on strengthening the ranks of cadres of the People's Army in a qualitative way, enhancing its fighting efficiency and establishing sound military traits by receiving a large amount of bribes and leading a dissipated life. During the past 4 years, when he had been in a responsible post of the political organ, he created special illusions about him, while being engrossed in all sorts of abuses of authority and arbitrariness, and received a large amount of bribes from dishonest elements, obsessed with greed and a thirst for a high post. He fostered the acts of buying and selling posts, receiving bribes, and committing political fraud in the army, and seriously hindered the establishment of the party's monolithic command system across the entire army by appointing his confidants as toadies to important posts. He neglected every affair related to the implementation of the party's command policy across the entire army by plundering the maximum amount of state funds, materials, and dwelling houses, and squandering them in dissolute and depraved life. Pak Hui Chol scandals are extra large crimes that go beyond imagination, in view of their dangerousness and harmfulness. As a result of the strict struggle against scandal, our army came to be provided with a powerful motive force capable of removing the poison and evil practices lurking inside the military and political guidance organ at the right time, and further renewing its militant prestige. Through the serious political struggle, the People's Army has made a stride forward in making the entire army ideologically elite. The reality proved that the further the struggle against scandals is intensified, the stronger the army becomes, the cleaner its purity becomes, and the deeper the trust of the party and the people in the heroic strong army becomes. The participants in the meeting realized once again the necessity and urgency of observing the strict political and moral discipline and intensifying the uncompromising struggle which have defended the qualitative growth and firm union of the revolutionary ranks. In the present important historical course, a verdict on the accused was issued. The Supreme Court of the DPRK sharply condemned the extra-large scandal, corrupt elements for their crimes, and imposed penalties on them. Comrade Kim Jong-un clarified the solemn stand of the Party Central Committee to steadily enhance the intensity of the organizational and ideological offensive, for transforming the ranks of the cadres into an elite and the legal structure for rooting out irregularities and corruption. The joint meeting strongly signaled that there is no place for irregularities and corruption harmful to developing revolution, and the elements infected by them to exist. And it re-expressed the unshakable will of the Workers' Party of Korea and the DPRK government to proactively and positively suppress and repel all sorts of corruption and violations of discipline, and thus open up a new phase of building a ruling party, strong and sound in discipline, and full of vital revolutionary climate, and dynamically accelerate the building of a powerful nation under the strict legal discipline. From report from the political news team. There is more details you might be interested in listening to or reading about, but there you go. The latest anti-corruption drive by the WPK. You know what I always say, comrades? Party purges are good, actually. The last time this happened with DPRK, a big one like this was Pak Jang Thek, which, of course, at the time the media reported as Kim Jong-un killed him with dogs, and it was his uncle. And he did it as some sort of, like, power play or something, right? When really, no, this guy stole a whole bunch of wealth, used his relation to Kim Jong-un to try and rally a whole bunch of these corrupt elements around himself, and was trying to carve out, like, this pro-Western faction in the party. He got caught, and he was...
What's it gonna be?
Gotten rid of. And this is why I'm purging all the Marxists from PRF. This is thank you, Meg, for the mandatory for a 20. This is why the party line exists in PRF, though. And that's why in PRF the party line is just non-negotiable, because we're not a party. We're all part of parties, and our party line in PRF represents a coalescing of the International Proletarian Revolution's party line. As in, what the WPK, what the CPC, what PSL, what all of these socialist revolutionary parties have in common as their line. And that's why it's just simply non-negotiable. You can't be an anarchist, you can't come in PRF and argue with us about why China is not socialist, actually. You can ask us, and you can ask us to help you give the ammo to fight against people who say that. But you can't come in trying to convince us of anything that goes against that party line. There's there because I mean, in many ways, my stream works that same way as well, right? You're not going to come in here and debate me about whether China's socialist or not. I'll help educate you, and many of my chat will help educate you as to why it is socialist, but that's about it, right? That's the party line. And it's like there's all kinds of other spaces for debate and getting the anarchist education. But if none of us are talking about the difference between anarchism and social democracy and Marxism, Leninism, then, well, how is anybody going to know? It's up to us to talk about it, right? All right, one last article for you today from DPRK again. The DPRK party and government delegation visited various places in Beijing and Tianjin. A party and government delegation of the DPRK, led by Pak Tae Thong, member of the Presidium of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, Vice President of the DPRK State Affairs Commission, and Premier of the DPRK Cabinet, on an official visit to the People's Republic of China, visited the history of the exhibition house of the Communist Party of China on July 12th. Chapter 2. Remember how Xi Jinping just went to DPRK and visited the Marxist Leninist cadres training school there, the WPK's cadre training school. So now you have Pak Tang Song, vice president of the presidium, the presidium of the political bureau, vice president of the DPRK State Affairs Commission, as in vice president to Kim Jong Un, and premier of the DPRK cabinet. So he's head of the government officially in title. He visited the history of the exhibition house of the Communist Party of China. So another symbolic, like, these two communist parties are working together, which goes beyond just, as Ben Norton talked about, and as I talked about, I think, even on stream before Ben put out that video, was that, this is much deeper. It seems like nothing is being happening. It seems like there's no concrete, like, this is what we're doing, because this is much more concrete than that. This isn't just two countries engaging in friendly diplomatic relations. This is also two communist parties of those countries engaging in fraternal communist relations in a co in a cohesive struggle against US imperialism and global capitalism. Right? That's what this is, like, a signaling of, and a concrete stepping up of those relations. So it's not just two countries diplomatically meeting, it's also two revolutionary parties. And they're signaling that by Xi Jinping going to visit the Cadres Revolutionary Training School in DPRK, and now DPRK visiting the Communist Party of China's exhibition house. Accompanying them were Hua Chunying, Vice Minister of the Foreign Affairs of China, and Wang Yajin, Chinese ambassador to the DPRK. The members of the delegation looked around the materials and exhibits showing the course and founding of the development of the CPC. And here they are. I like that face. That face on him right there. Pretty impressive, the look on his face. Not bad. Not bad. Pretty good, is what he's saying there. And then he signed the guest book inside the exhibition house. And he toured a bunch of sites around Beijing and Tianjin as well, before heading back to DPRK again. And that is your Tankie Times news today. A Tank Tube production.